Hi everyone, welcome. I love this turnout on a Tuesday night. This is fantastic. Thank you for coming. Yes. My name's Joanna Belfer. I'm the owner of Belcanto Books. Hello. Thank you, Pam. Thank you for being here. Hey. So this is our space at Kubo LB, and I always like to ask a show of hands for whom is this your first time visiting us here? Oh, lots of people. Well, welcome. Well, I hope this means that you will come back. Kubo is a Filipinx-led creative collective founded by Romeo Garcia, who is a former chocolatier, and Jen Espacio, who owns Flip Family, and she does cultural programming for families and kids. And we're just so delighted to have this space here because it means we can have events like this. So I hope you'll come back and bring your family. We have 2 other locations in Long Beach, our own store on 4th Street, as well as a little pop-up inside of a cafe called Steel Cup. So we hope you will come and see all of our locations and check us out. But we're the most excited for this event. It's not often, well, it's embarrassing because people are like, oh, you must read all the books. I'm like, I don't really have time to read all the books anymore. I really wish I did. But I will say that I did read this book. And I'm going to show this off because I know there's some people in the audience who will be appalled, but I belong to the Spine Breakers Club. Hello. So it's my book. I'm not sharing it with anybody. And as soon as I get a book that I like, I crack that baby open. Because it fits better in your hand. And as you can see, this is a well-loved book. So I'm really excited for everyone to read this and leave lots of feedback for Gabriella and listen to the audiobook by Dante and Danice. I'm going to read their bios briefly, and then I'm going to turn it over to them. Gabriela Buba is a mixed Filipino-Czech author and a chemical engineer. I'm like, ooh, okay. Based in Texas, who likes to keep explosive pyrophoric materials safely contained in pressure vessels or between the covers of her books, which is true for this book. She writes adult romantic fantasy for bold, bi, brown women who deserve to see their stories centered. Amen. Her debut, Saints of Storm and Sorrow, is a Filipino-inspired epic fantasy out now with Titan Books. And very happily to see that Saints 2 is scheduled to be released in July 2025. So exciting. On her right, I don't know why I do this. I don't have my hands and I can't do the left and right. My husband's back there like, oh my god. With a career spanning over 2.5 decades, Dante Basco is a Hollywood actor who has become a cult classic and a pioneering figure in Asian American cinema. When we posted this event, people were like, you mean like Dante Basco? I'm like, yes, that one. So you know that Dante has been in so many movies, films, TV shows. I know that lots of people are excited because he is the voice of Zuko in The Last Airbender, and I've seen like people's books and things for folks to sign. But we're really excited that he is one of the audiobook narrators for Saints of Storm and Sorrow. Welcome, Dante. And last but certainly not least, Danice Cabanela is a Filipino-American actor, producer, and activist born in the Philippines and raised in San Antonio, Texas. Her first ever narration was for Arsenic and Adobo. You know, by Mia Manansala, which was named one of BuzzFeed's most highly anticipated books of 2020. Her current project with Gabriela and Dante is The Saints of Storm and Sorrow, and it is currently one of Spotify's best sci-fi fantasy of 2024. So welcome, and you guys are in for a treat. I'm going to turn it over to them. At the end, we'll do Q&A, and then we'll have a book signing and have fun and mix and mingle and talk to your neighbors. All right, here we go.
So I figured we'd start with a short reading from Sage to kind of set the tone a little bit. And luckily, for once, I don't have to do my own reading. I don't know how it
one more time for Gabriella. All right. From this side of the palisade, Lenurin couldn't see the city of Aymila, only the wide blue stretch of the bay and Mount Hilaga dominating the horizon to the north. The volcano's verdant green slopes were striped on the seaward side with narrow black lava flows streaming from the peak into the sea, a bad sign. Hilaga, like all the archipelago's volcanoes, was a sacred place. Ever since the Cotasians had started mining volcanic ballast for the Santa Clarita, the peak had belched steam. Lenurin couldn't imagine the completion of the new bridge, the Puente de Hilaga, would improve things. The old gods were discontent. Lenurin turned away from the brewing disaster across the water toward the church bell tower and the man-made rhythms of the palisade. Only suffering came from listening to angry gods. They were old elemental beings of storm, sea, and land, with no grasp of the human consequences that came of wielding their powers. It was safest to avoid even thinking their names, lest she draw unwelcome attention. Like all the women in her family, she had too much Catalonan blood in her. Like the dugong, her voice was too loud. It was better that she concerned herself only with the doings inside the walls of the convent. She built a good life for herself. She would not allow it to be undone, even by divine portents.
So good. I'm nervous.
Of course, everything after that went really well and nothing bad happened. Which is how we end up in our second reading section.
I don't know where. That was so good to me. This was my first audiobook, actually. So, yeah. Lenurin seized his shoulder as every drop of water in the room leaped to his hand. Alan stared at the tea from Lenurin's cup that now balanced on the tip of his index finger. He couldn't usually pull water fresh enough to drink. It was the reason he tried to use fresh water for healing when people didn't know what he was. It was harder to affect fresh water. Very slowly, he tipped the tea back into the cup. Alan folded into a cross-legged position. He locked his hands together over his ankles and held his breath until the nearness of the salt water flowing up the Saliwan River did not pulse just outside the window, begging him to make use of it. He couldn't usually feel the bay this far inland, and that was a blessing. He prayed the rains would come soon and wash the salt back out to the bay. It was hard not to conceal what he was without constant temptation. Alan cleared his throat. Forgive me. Lenurin let him go. He tried not to miss her nearness. Rustlings and muttering came from behind the screen, along with a low exclamation of alarm. Lenurin bent, pressing her face into her knees. For a terrible moment, he thought she would weep. But when she looked up, her eyes were dry, burning with rage that was not human, brewing with the storm that always lived in her bones. How could everyone else not see it, and love it, and fear it in equal measure? Please tell me there's something you can do. I can't let this happen. If this happens, I won't be able to let him live. Her teeth clicked together. Alan took her hands from her knees and pressed them to his brow. Anything in my power, it is yours.
Wow, they are so good at what they do, aren't they, guys?
Yeah.
I remember when Spotify approached us, they said, if you want to submit a sample to read your own book, you can. And I was like, no. No, that's you guys' job. You find professionals. So I thought we'd go through a couple open to the floor for some questions from the crowd. So think about that now, guys. Now's your moment. Get ready. So what was you guys' favorite scene to read in Saints? I can go first. They're children. Oh no, right. No. We can cover their ears. Second favorite. Mine was the wedding morning. So that was one of those like crystalline images I had when I started writing the story. I had this picture of a Filipino bride, beautiful Maria Clara, lace and pina cloth, drenched in blood. I was like, I don't know what happened to get there, but I'm gonna find out. What was yours, Denise?
One of mine was when I thought the scene. I don't know if anyone else like just watched this when they were reading it, but I was like, this is a TV show. Like this is a movie. It's so clear. But there was the scene. It was between Alon and Leonard, and they were just so still, and it was I can't remember what was happening, but the visual was so beautiful, and then the river flowing down her back, and the words were so rich and just gorgeous that I just wanted to swim in it, you know. So I loved that, and it was my first naughty book. They asked me for the first time ever, do you want a pseudonym? And I was like, why would I want a pseudonym? I was like, oh my God. So funny. Thank you. The words were just beautiful.
That makes me so happy. I want you to know the first flame I ever got on the internet accused me of having hideous purple prose, and I never stopped. Oh yeah, no, we're all on here with our real, full, legal names, so sorry.
No, it was my first any audiobook, so I don't know, favorite, I was nerve-wracking the whole time. But as I was preparing, I was lucky enough to have Danice's, she recorded her stuff first, so I was able to read the book and then listen to her chapters and read my chapter, so I was following the book along. But the favorite moments, obviously, are the beginning where everything's kind of fun and playful. And I always like that part of movies and books, and then it gets super dark. Super dark and not disturbed, but just like the love triangle thing happens, and then I really enjoyed them kind of getting together at the end. Like there was moments in the book where I was like, are they not getting? What's happening? And I did not want them together for part of the book.
Yeah.
And then I think when spoiler alert, when they end up kind of coming back together, like third act of the book, I was like, I really enjoyed the coming together of them and the reasons and how you shed certain things, and it was really beautiful.
Oh, awesome. I think that leads into a great, are you Team Cat or Team Alan? I love that you were playing both sides for a minute, Dad.
I was playing both sides. I early in the game, I was kind of Team Cat, and especially Alan. You know, Alan liked her, was in love with her, but then also he was doing questionable things that I wasn't 100% understanding what he was doing. But then, again, a lot of spoilers going on here. But it came together for me at the end.
All right. Love to hear that. How about you? Team Cat or Team Alan?
That's hilarious. I was Team Alan the whole time. I was like, girl, you gotta work on yourself. And then, but
Cat's pretty righteous early, and then Cat went off. Cat went somewhere else.
I love that he, your character really, he what is it called? Yielded. He yielded to the female power, and I just appreciated that. And also, he wasn't as insane, like in a what is it called? Religious way,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
There was a version of this. So Just how many recovered pathways? And I did want to ask Denise, like, your elder voices were so amazing. I actually cried during a couple scenes. Like, that was just like how I heard them in my head. Like, how do you, I get that that's your job, and that's what you do, but like, tell us a little bit about getting into those characters. You do such an amazing job.
Thank you for that. I channel my titas. It first starts out as comedy, and then I come into a dark place. But I just always loved. I grew up with 4 different languages in my household: my Tagalog, English, and then my mom speaks Kapampangan, and my dad speaks Filipino. And I just always, because I'm a chismosa, I always want to like hear what they're saying and understand. But I think in trying to understand your own people, your own family, you just sit, like, what is that called? Like, it's like they're giving me chismes, and I'm also like hearing accents. I'm also hearing.
Conversation is such a two-way street.
It is. They don't know I'm listening all the time. But I have always appreciated the musicality of all the different languages. They're so different. And how people express themselves. And I just always found it really fascinating. And I don't really know how I practice, but I always parrot. Even as a kid, like, people probably thought I was being an asshole, but they're like, because I'll hear it and I'll be like, what's that word do? I'll just mimic it without even thinking, like, don't do that. She's like, no, don't say that. But I can't help myself. But it's, where did this go? What was the question?
I just love your elder voices so much because of the spoiler alert, terrible things that I do. It was just so chilling in your voice.
Thank you. It's you. You wrote
that makes me so happy. and Dante, oh my goodness, like the really intense scenes in your voice, the festival seed state scene. I didn't realize how intense that was because I'm the author. I have read that book 700 times. The words don't mean anything to me anymore. I'm like, yeah, you said something. Then having it read with so much emotion, I was like, oh my god, how is he going to do that? And I'm like, I need to do that.
I just think it's very cinematic. Like you talked earlier, Denise,
Netflix.
the way you wrote it. Yeah, you painted a picture of the events and what was going on. The whole thing is very cinematic. I also saw it like a film, a lot of it. And so it's easy to kind of, as an actor, get into the scene, as it were, because you set the stage so nicely, and then these characters are all doing very fascinating things. And some, and they're all very complex characters. That there's, everyone does many things that are questionable. Like, what are they doing? Why are they doing that? I feel I'm rooting for you now. I'm rooting against you, kind of thing.
Absolutely. I like to say that everyone asks, like, why are my characters the way they are? And I like to give every character a lie that they're telling the world and a lie that they're telling themselves. And the tension between those two lies coming closer to each other and moving further apart is kind of how, like, the internal decision making of my characters happens. Maybe that says something bad about me as a person, but I just love that, like, I think that there's a disconnect between what you tell yourself and what you tell the world. And what that disconnect is for each character and how they move through coming to peace with it. It's kind of, that's like a big thing I explore through writing. Yeah. And I just kind of wanted to ask you, how is audiobook narration similar or different from acting for like camera, or you guys also do voice acting for like for your animation?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's, filmmakers or whatever, or authors, we're all really just storytellers. And as as actors, sometimes you're just a piece of that story, but you're doing your best to be that piece of the story in the big storytelling of everything as you get to direct or produce. We're just storytellers, and so coming in to narrating the book, you're a storyteller as an author. Now we're here to help continue to tell the story, and so you just always at service to the story is what ultimately it happens. And it was very amazing because this is my first audiobook, but I was very, when the distributors and Spotify contacted me, the fact that it was a Filipino story, a Filipino author, and I got to read some of it, and I was really impressed and just wanted to be a part of telling folklore from where I'm from where we're from, and using some of the things that we grew up. Because I love so many different books, from like Harry Potter to Percy Jackson to all these things. I love all these things, and to be a part of a book that is pulling from places where we're from, characters that are of us, and it's just as vibrant, it's just as exciting, and also just as heart-wrenching and disturbing at certain times. I really loved having the chance to help be of service to your story.
And I think you guys both brought so much emotion to this story that I didn't even imagine was in there. A thing that a lot of authors do as a last pass is you listen to your audiobook, to your words aloud to catch echoes. And so you use a robot voice or a screen reader, and those are so robotic, and they butcher our languages and our names and our place names so much. But I think I was prepared for the audiobook. I was prepared to not enjoy it, but I didn't enjoy that pass of editing. And listening to you guys' performances, it is amazing and so moving. Lauren, how do you find audiobooks different or similar to acting?
Yeah, I can speak to more of the technical stuff. I agree with Dante in that it is ultimately, we're telling a story. When it comes to doing an audiobook, it's a marathon. And it's like cold reading for 9 hours. It's really challenging, and if you're not focused, and if you have a hard time sitting still for a really long time, which is me, I have to walk around every hour, and just get my body moving. It's hard to stay focused because you have to know every word that you're saying, because if you don't, I know for me, it's like when you're reading the same page over and over again, what happened? You just want to make sure that you tell the story right. And there's a mental and physical toll that it takes. And I remember my first audiobook, which Joanna mentioned, is Arsenic and Adobo. I was not prepared. I was not prepared physically, because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done an audiobook before. And after that experience, I was like, I'm never doing this again. It was so hard on my voice. But then I learned how to sustain. I think that you learn how to just chill out and the vocal cords do the thing. But it's such, I've always loved reading. I've always loved, when I would get grounded, it was because I wouldn't eat my dinner because I was reading Harry Potter. I would lock myself in my room, and that's the stuff I got in trouble for. But it's just really, I feel really honored to get to bring these stories to life. I personally love reading books over watching stuff. So to be able to do this, I never thought this was a thing. And I feel
That's so awesome. I was also the kid that got their books taken away as punishment whenever I didn't do something right. It wasn't grounding, but anything else. It was mom digging under a mattress, stealing all my reading material when I was hiding. So that is so great. But y'all are also both writers, right? TV, and then you wrote your memoir. Have you ever thought about writing a novel? Do you ever enter that space?
No, I don't. Or writing a novel? I don't know. I I write movies, we write films. Me and my brother and my wife are all filmmakers, and we write and produce films, and they're they're short. They're all films more than that are short stories that are 90 minutes to 2 hours. It's really a short story compared to a novel, or because you have like an A storyline, B storyline, maybe a C storyline will come back in, and then you read the books. I like really like how many storylines are going on here. Tons of storylines. I can't get my mind straight, but I respect writing, and I love writing. My attention span, like I'm just gonna write this much. And to what Danice was saying is like with the acting, what people don't realize when we act, we're only acting the dialogue. That's what actors do. We act the dialogue and walk through the scene. And when you do this, we are acting, essentially acting the whole everything to every single detail in the room that the authors explains, the lighting. We're doing the lighting, the camera work, the direction, on top of the acting and the dialogue, and also scene change. Like, so you're doing everything, and so it's marathon. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I apologize. Saints is quite thick. There's a lot of words in there. I tried to slim her down, and my editor was like, "I see where you've taken stuff out, and we're going to put that right back in. You need more trials." So hats off to my editor. She's amazing and wonderful to work with. So I just wanted to touch on backgrounds, I guess. Texas girl like me, I love that. I feel like California Filipinos, y'all don't get it. It's just you're in Texas and no one gets it, man. What was it like for you growing up in Texas, and how have you liked the transition to California? That culture shift. Tell me about it.
She's from Houston, I'm from San Antonio, and we're rival cities. I'm really proud to be from Texas, and also to have lived in different parts of the world, where I got to realize that, being Filipino American, being Asian American means something different everywhere you go. And there are a billion ways to be Filipino American. And it's, I know we hear this a lot, but we're not a monolith. We're so many things, and we get to be who we are. But growing up in the 90s in very Texas, white part of town, we've come so far. I feel like we have come so far. My life has changed drastically. I will say, I love LA Filipinos. LA Filipinos is like a different breed of Filipinos, and it's so awesome. It's so hardcore. I love it. And to be here and to find so much community with the Filipino community here, I don't think I've been happier being Filipino American than here in LA.
Wow, I love that.
Go to the Bay. Go to the Bay. I'm originally from the Bay, so I'm a Cali kid. I'm a Cali Filipino, born in the Bay, raised in LA. All my roots from the Bay Area. I found my dirt in LA, and we've been around. I've been a pioneering voice for Asian Americans and whatnot, but it's where we're from, we weren't even minorities. You know what I'm saying? Being a Filipino from the Bay was it was swag day one, everyone. We were always the best break dancers and the best DJs, and had respect within the hip hop community. And then coming to LA is a little bit different because it depends on how you swing, because it's different. The Bay was more hood, blue collar Filipinos, right? That's how I grew up. And then when you came to LA, there's a lot more middle class Filipinos and Cerritos and different CRX crews and Honda clicks and Honda. It's a whole. So there's a whole language of what was going on in LA. And there was the friendship games in college, so all the Filipinos on the West Coast got together in college, and all the guys that weren't in colleges went to go pick up on the girls anyway. And then, so there's a whole community. So like when I do meet Filipinos around the country, they're like, you guys, it's like a mecca of Filipino stuff going on in California. We're the only Filipino crew per people. Like I was just in a Comic-Con last weekend in Tennessee, and my cousin grew up in Philadelphia. The other only Filipino guy that was in the town where he was from was like his Filipino cousin. And so like therefore we're kind of like cousins. He's a chef and something. So I ended up going to his restaurant. He's like, yeah man, you don't know, like we were the only ones. And like I was always told you were my cousin because like my Filipino cousin was your cousin, so you're my cousin too. And like I know how the Filipino math works. And I've told all these people at this Comic-Con, you're my cousin too. But then, I mean, yeah, so I think that our backgrounds are, no matter where you're from in the States, I think we share something as Bill has.
Oh yeah. And I love the bond of the Filipino community. I always say like I am getting ahead on the backs of the titas who want me to succeed in life. Like every time I get an event somewhere or something, I'm just like, why did they respond? And someone will be like, my CP, she works at that bookstore. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm okay with it. Like the Filipinos are like almost the invisible minority. Maybe now we don't see it. There's kind of a moment in Filipino fantasy right now where there's more and more of it. But when I was a kid, like every nurse was a Filipino, but you didn't see us in medical dramas. We are here, but in the media we weren't. And that was a weird distance for me as a writer. I did the thing that most writers and colors will tell you this. They start out and all their stories are white. Because if you want to write fantasy, well, who's gonna read a Filipino fantasy? No one's gonna read that. I'm gonna write a Northern European fantasy like I've seen before. And your stories never work, and they never work. And then finally, I had a Chinese American writing mentor who like kind of just gave me a little joggle, and she goes, "All your characters are Filipino. All your stories, they're Filipino, and that's the reason it's not working." And I was like, light bulb moment.
I mean, when I came into Hollywood in the 80s, they didn't know what a Filipino was. Nobody had know what a Filipino was. I came in the room, and they're like, what are you? I'm like, I'm Filipino. I'm like, what is that? I'm like, what's the role? He's Mexican. I'm like, well, what kind of Mexican? They're like, what's the role? Chinese. Like, yeah, what kind of that too? And so I got to play so many different characters throughout my career, but make no mistake, they were all Filipino.
And I think last question for me, and then we'll open it to a room. What of the three God's blessed powers would you most want in real life? We're all dying to know, I know this. I know. And I've also made a quiz if any of you guys want to know. Check it out, it's on my website. You can find the quiz, it gets sorted. I planned for this. Obviously, I want to be a strong father because I was an angry person as a child. And I think I spent a lot of time growing up learning to not be that angry person because you can't be the only woman of color in an engineering meeting. You can't be angry. Then no one will listen. So how do you learn how to not be the angry person, be the peacekeeper? That was kind of the struggle of making it in my day job. So having a place to write and just like let it all out and make my anger everybody's problem, spectacular. Start all over for me.
I mean, not just like voice sound, but I do like healing. I like the healing aspect of, I mean, it's waterbending for sure. And we all know I'm a firebender. I was really enjoying the, I used a very interesting character, like he kind of, where he put himself in the story and how he was dealing with women and respecting them and fearing at the same time, and then ultimately, again, being of service, trying to be of service, and then that becoming his healing, how he healed, and the beauty of using water. I really appreciated that.
I love that. I actually have a meme that is like, Alan, what is your power? And it's respecting women juice. That's the secret. I will say that Saints of Storm and Sorrow is Avatar: The Last Airbender, but Filipino, and the Avatar is not a pacifist. So that's my short pitch.
Anarchy. I have to agree. I was torn between those two, but I think that healing is what I would want as well. I just felt so, we need so much healing in this world, especially right now, and it just resonates with me to bring more of that peace and okayness. And every time we had those scenes with the, you know, the laying of the hands, it was just like the lightning through the body. Oh my gosh, it was just stunning. And to be able to heal people, I think is just so beautiful. So yeah, I agree with that too. Are we a match?
I love that. I love that. I also agree that you guys have picked the best like of the old gods to be in service to. Like lifelong as a good path in life. I think Line would be the best pick there. So yeah, awesome. Thank you guys so much for like taking the time to chat with me. You guys all need the audiobook. It is amazing. I've been listening to it while I go around to all of these awesome California events. Can we open the floor to questions?
Hi. So everyone's like, oh, Zuko, I'm like, oh, who for you? So my question is for Gabrielle. So then, so you said that you're a chemical engineer, and I teach chemistry. There's not a lot of Filipino folks like us, especially in the science and engineering space. So thank you for that. So I'm curious how your chemical background knowledge, how did that show up in the book? Yeah, how did you explore that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So a lot of people call me out on anachronisms like the word solution in a fantasy novel. I leaned a lot on like how, I didn't just want it to be lightning powers in the traditional sense. I leaned a lot into like how electricity interacts with the world with like, I took a section where she was using the flow of electrons in like a primitive battery between an iron gate and a silver cross, and the flow of electrons to erode the gate away is how she uses her lightning. Exactly. So there are a couple little scenes like that where I definitely injected like a little bit of science into my fantasy. But I always say this is a fantasy because when I try to write sci-fi, I will spend a whole afternoon calculating the water hammer caused an underwater city by shutting a door, and then I'm like, well now the whole story falls apart because we closed the door and generated the power of the sun. So we don't get to have an underwater city story. Someone shut a door. But yeah, that's an awesome question. It's definitely in the background, but not in the forefront because I overthink things.
I just have a question about how the audiobooks are created. Is there a director while you are recording? Or are you doing it in the studio? Are you doing it at home? And then how do you know if you're on the right track or not? Like, how does that work? I know how they do film and TV for ER, but just not sure how they do it here.
For this one, it was a little bit different because there's usually a director, but this time it was ourselves. And so we had we both recorded in studio, and Spotify wasn't open yet by the time I recorded, so I was in Voice Tracks anyone? Studio City, yeah. And then you've got you in the booth, and then the engineer that's separated by a wall, and then you just read, and they're doing so much. I think engineers should be really credited because they do so much work. It's incredible. Because so you know, my guy, he was helping to just catch errors, but also be like, does that make sense? Like if we know we're on the right track. I don't know. Usually the engineer will tell you, but you're just hoping, you're like praying, like that you're on the right track. Because like I mentioned earlier, it is basically cold reading for hours and hours, and yeah, I just hope and pray.
I came after you, and Spotify was open, and I got the cheat. They gave me a director. It was later. They were probably holding me by the hand, like they're like, Dante, scared of this. You're so brilliant. And so I got her whole performance and a director and the editor to help me out. I'm like, yo, you guys, I was shook like for we would do 4-hour blocks. It's like I was talking for 4 hours straight and just being like, are we on? What am I doing? What are we doing? It took me a few sessions to get my confidence going, but yes, I think they wanted to walk me by the hand a little bit. She was already brilliant, you know what I'm saying? They're like, Dante may need a little help.
I love that.
Did you have to read the book first to be able to understand, practice reading before you actually, or did you just straight read? And I probably answered my own question, but just reversing.
That's a great question. No, that's a great question. Because oh man, this definitely was the book that I had to really focus and read. You have to read it before, because you want to be emotionally prepared for anything that comes up. Also, so many words. I injected a little bit of chemistry in there. I'm like, girl, you're such a chemist. Talk about the salt, the walls, imploding because of the science stuff.
What's going on? This is a lot of description.
The glasses came out in the lab coat in Pack 3. But there is so much preparation that goes into the audiobook stuff, especially when you're dealing with science and lore. And to know the Catalonas and what all of these things mean so many different things. I've never had to look up so many words
I was going to ask that too, the enunciations of
my life. And then, and for me, I just, the little bits at a time, I'll read out loud, but the day of, I think you just get a little better and better the more that you do it. By the 1000th page you've read, you're like, okay, I can read a little bit easier now without sweating.
It's so crazy. So again, I got to come after Danice, right? So I'm listening to all her chapters, and then I'm reading the chapters in between, and my wife is next to me like, I'm just stressed out the whole time. I'm up late, like, just pulling my hair out, like, I can't believe I gotta do all these chapters. The thing is, when you look at a script, and actually when we go through the script, first of all, the script's about 100 pages. And each page of a script, there's more white page than black ink. It's like not even double space. It's like there's more page than words. And it's only 100 pages. And now you're talking about hundreds and hundreds of pages where it's way more ink words than pages. And I'm just in the middle of it, like, oh my gosh, I gotta do this. And I'm like reading them out loud, but thankfully I have all of Denise's fabulous performance to listen to over and over again, and then get to read the chapters and prepare, days
And I will
before.
say, the transition between like having your work and then being able to listen to it perform, like they pass so seamlessly between each other. I was just like, oh, this is lovely. I'm still shocked that you had a director.
They didn't trust me.
I was completely in the dark about how everything was happening. They
I
asked
never
me
knew how it
for
worked.
a
I didn't even know how
list of
it worked. I was like, how does this work?
So funny.
Just really quick question for the author. If tomorrow Hollywood's like, hey, we want to give you a deal, and you had the option to choose between a live action series at Netflix or an traditionally animated series, what would you want?
Loaded question over there. Loaded question.
There's so many like amazing Filipino actors right now that like I would love to see in this work. But on the other hand, I recently watched Prese, and that art style was so beautiful. And I also feel like a lot of the times when we try to make something that was animated live action and all that magic, I feel like the translation's not as good. With so much magic being in this book, maybe it'd be better just to draw it. But we can have all Filipino voice actors. What would you guys say? If you guys had to choose, like, who to play on the live screen, these characters, and who would pick? I didn't even think of that question. Great one. Yeah.
Well, your question really depends on budget. It's how much the studio is going to give us to make.
I know.
They give us enough to make a really beautiful animated series. You do that, and they give us, they give us white money. You know what I'm saying? They give us another bill. Like, yeah, let's do this. But I mean, that's really how Hollywood's people always look at it that way. And they go, well, they only can make it for that much. That's what they gave us. Where the people call it Hollywood. The films I've done where we would, with Black or Latino or Asian projects, including Crazy Rich Asians, is a cut below what you would get the same exact kind of film in a white cast. And that's just reality.
So true.
It's all about cheers.
Every time I look at the budgeting for other authors' books, and it's like the My Little Filipino book, and that's why we're getting ahead on the Filipino connections. We'll do it together, guys.
There's a lot.
We do. We do. Yeah, that was a great question. One more question? Anybody?
Sure, I got some. As a main storyteller was to filmmaking, when you write the script, you have an act 1, act 2, act 3. Then you write the story first and you create the character. So, writing a fantasy book, do you create the world first and you bring the character, introduce the character, or you build the character first and then create the world around that character?
Saints is a weird one to answer this question for because I have been trying to tell this story of a failed child chosen one for so long that I have moved her into different worlds as I grew as an author to make this story happen. So for Saints, it was definitely character first. I wanted this fight between a child who should have been that child hero from every story, all grown up, convinced that like this is her life now. She's just going to live and die like this, and then learning that no, you can't just step away from your past like that. But other projects that I'm working on are much more world first. Once I realized that like my stories come alive when I accept the fact that everyone is Filipino, then I can create the type of world that I want to put characters into and see how they react to it. So for me, it evolved as I grew. That's an awesome question. Last bit while we got the mic, what is it that you're working on next? Anything you want to plug or talk about? Well, we have everyone wonderfully trapped here.
Yeah, well, bunch of different things. I'm running a one-man show right now. From Rufio to Zuko, based on the book. So we've been workshopping it and hoping I'll be able to tour that in 2024, 25, something like that. And Fabulous Filipino Brothers 2, we're working on that. The sequel of the film, and there's a lot of work we're building and putting together an Asian film slate to give opportunities to other Asian directors and storytellers out there too.
I love that. I'm working on Saints Book 2. It is a duology. Hopefully very soon we'll have fun announcements to make about it, cover and title wise. I have beautiful things in my inbox. And one last thing, if you have a beautiful blank pale colored book, if you show up to Make Collectives in Long Beach on Saturday morning, I will teach you to do this. We can do it together. I believe in all of us. Pat will be hosting us at her shop. So put on your calendar, check out GabrielleLB.com. Snag a spot in the class. There are only 10 available.
So I'm co-writing a script, a comedy horror with my friend Robert. Any hoarders in here? Hoarders? Is this scary
Children.
thing? Yeah, children. Yes. Inspiration. Yes. That we're developing, and there's also some Filipino folklore in there as well. And then I am also working on this baby in the oven, who's due October 26th.
I'm also
I love it. So thank you guys, everyone.
So I'm going to invite everyone to just turn around in your chair if you can. So there's my husband Phil. He's like, oh God. I always put him on the spot to take our photo. So if you have your book, hold your book up, because we will send this to the publisher and be like, look, people want Filipino stories. We want Filipino actors reading Filipino stories.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Instagram. 1, 2, 3. Great.
Thank you again so much to Dante, Gabriella, Danice. Make this a requirement for my future events. I'm like, are your audiobook narrators available? Because if not, you can't do it. So I'm going to have them actually move over here to sign books. So chill out for a minute. But if you have a folding chair, if you can help fold the chairs and put them to the back, you pull it from the back. So you step on the front and pull it from the back. Come on. You guys are awesome. I love it.